Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? Okay, so no, this is not a vlog. I know it's probably very confusing because I am sitting out on the front porch. I was actually gonna do this video in the bedroom so that I could show Boo Radley off because Boo Radley got an adorable haircut and he looks so good. So I was gonna show him off, but he's eating his dinner right now. And it is such a gloriously beautiful day outside. It's about 80 degrees in Indianapolis. And so I thought, you know what? I'm gonna come out here on the front porch, which is my absolutely happy place. I love sitting out here. I've already bought some flowers for the summer. My friend Tanya Jean, when I was in the hospital, she brought me these flowers, which I have right over here on my little table. But I'm gonna show the rest of the flowers in my vlog. And then when I finish my whole patio, I'm going to do a video over here on this channel showing, because you know how I do that every year. So I've got a couple more plants that I want to buy, but today on my vlog, I'm going to show the flowers that I've bought already. But I have gotten so many people that have asked me, what shows have you watched since you've been gone? Because I know that you've been binge watching shows, which I have. I've been binge watching shows like crazy. So I thought, I should just do a whole video talking about all the shows that I've binge watched and what I thought about them, and just, here, let me adjust this camera for just a second, and just give you guys the, you know, the 411 on all the shows that I've watched, which is crazy because I have to tell you. So if you watch my channel for a while, you know I keep a list of all the shows that I'm currently watching, and I also keep a list of all the watched TV shows that I've finished, right? So as of 2023, this year, I have already completed 37 shows. And some of those are like one series, some of those are like 3 series, it just kind of depends, right? But since I went into the hospital, I have finished, hold on a second, let me see. I have finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 shows in a month. Okay, that's kind of pathetic, I have to admit, that my life, I'm gonna be doing a booktube video tomorrow. My reading has completely fallen behind, but I have watched 19 shows. So we better just get into this conversation real quick. So anyway, the first show that I completed was Single Drunk Female, and I actually watched it the last night that I was in the hospital. I got out of the hospital on a Friday, and I think the whole second season came out on that Thursday, and so I just binge watched it in the hospital. It was like the best day that I had felt in the hospital. Before that, I didn't really watch any TV or anything. I was kind of so out of it from pain medication and then them coming in constantly and checking vitals and stuff. So I was so excited. A Single Drunk Female is one of my favorite TV shows. If you guys don't know anything about it, it is about a girl that ends up getting sober because she is on probation. Ali Sheedy plays her mom. It is so fantastically done. The writers have to be part of a 12-step program. It talks about sponsorship. It talks about relapsing. It talks about, I mean, it is so accurate when it is, and it's talking about 12-step programs and recovery and sobriety. And it's just, it's such a all of my friends in recovery watch it. It's such a fantastic show to watch because it just is the real deal, you know? Like, I watch a lot of shows where they talk about recovery and sobriety, but like they kind of miss the mark. Like, they'll have a meeting, like a 12-step meeting, but they'll have like a person running the meeting that will say like, so Peter, do you want to share? 12-step meetings, we don't do that. Like, that's not how it goes. That's group therapy. That's not a 12-step meeting. And so like when you're watching something and it has to do with sobriety and they miss the mark a little bit like that, it feels so disingenuous, and it's kind of like, well, why did you even go there anyway? You know, if you weren't going to really research it, like by attending one meeting so that you would know, like, so Single Drunk Female is so fantastically done, and it talks about sponsorship, and it talks about steps, and it talks about relationships. And the second season is really about Al-Anon, which is the sister program to Alcoholics Anonymous, which is for friends and family members of alcoholics and addicts. And they really focus a lot on Ali Sheedy's character as the mother and how she is affected by her daughter's drinking. And you know, so many families are really, really affected. Most families that have an alcoholic or an addict are affected. I don't even think that I had any clue how much I had affected like my dad and my stepmom till 20 years later, you know? And it's just, so well done. And the fear of attending their own program and getting help themselves is really addressed in there as well, and the shame and the guilt that goes along with it. So Single Drunk Female, if you haven't watched it ever, I would highly, highly recommend it. And it's funny too. It's like there's a lot of comedy to it. The next one was RuPaul's Drag Race season 15 that Alex and I watched the finale. I was very, very happy. I will say this, like, I wouldn't have been upset if Anitra won. I loved Mistress Brooks. My husband, he wasn't a big fan. But, like, I didn't think that she deserved to win. And, in fact, I have to say in the finale, Sasha Colby, I have been a fan of Sasha Colby since 2010 or something like that when she started competing in Miss Continental. So if y'all don't know, I'm a huge drag pageant person. And I think she started competing. She competed, like, 2 years before she won. So maybe 2011, 2012, she started competing in Miss Continental. I think she won 2012 or 2014, I'm not sure. But I've been a huge Sasha Colby fan since then. In fact, I was in LA years ago, and I was sitting at like Sir or Pump or one of those Lisa Vanderpump places, and she walked by with these two guys, and I was like, oh my god, it's Sasha Colby, and she like turned and looked at me and smiled, and I about died. So anyway, so it's funny that all these years later she's getting like all of this, you know. But anyway, so I was like Team Sasha anyway. The only thing is, I kind of thought she would bring it a little bit more for the show. Like, if you've ever seen her perform or you know what she can do, like, she can really do it. Like, I mean, she is unbelievable, right? And I thought she kind of played it down a little bit. And in fact, towards the end, I thought, okay, Anitra's going to win, and they're going to bring Sasha Colby back for an All-Star season, and she's going to win All-Stars, and she's going to really bring the costumes. I mean, and she did. I mean, her costumes were beautiful and all that kind of stuff. But I just felt like they were... Oh, I don't know. From having watched her so many years, I just was kind of like, I felt like she played it down a little bit. I will say that I thought that her finale night, I love the song Goddess. I thought she did fantastic. I will say that I thought that, and I'm not a huge Lux Noir fan. I don't dislike her, but I'm just not a huge fan. I thought she deserved to be in second place. I thought that her song and her performance was better than Anitra's or Mistress Brooks. And that's just how I feel about it. But I thought that the finale was great, and I loved it, and it was whatever. Okay, so then when I got out, I watched, I was really into this true crime documentary thing. You all know I love true crime documentaries. So I started just like binge watching them. And the first one that I watched was American Manhunt, the Boston Marathon bombing. Now I have to tell you, I really didn't know anything about this. It's on Netflix. It is so fantastically done. It is in 3 parts. It's very patriotic. And very much like Boston Pride. I didn't know really, I mean, I remember it happening, but other than that, I didn't know anything that happened afterwards or the manhunt or any of that kind of stuff. It's so interesting and it is so well done. And they have a lot of like bystanders that were involved in it that are sharing their story, which I always think that it makes it so much more interesting when you have victims that are sharing their story, because then I think it doesn't, with true crime in general, I think to not glamorize the serial killer or the person, the terrorist or whatever, but to to not glamorize them, but to focus the attention on the victims and the survivors and telling their stories, I think is really, really important. So I was really impressed with that. Then after that, I watched The Plane That Disappeared about the Malaysian airline. They still haven't found this plane. Like, okay, web sleuths and these like forums out there that are like citizen detectives, you guys, they are doing more for true crime than like police departments. And I guess apparently the Malaysian government and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's crazy. The one woman that she had like found like, anyway, if you have not seen it, I would highly recommend it. It was very, very good. But the only thing is, I don't love watching true crime documentaries when they're non-conclusive, like they don't really kind of have like an ending to it, or they're just kind of, like The Keepers, like I understood because they had kind of gone as far as they could, but when you watch this stuff and then it's kind of just like, oh well, we don't really know what's happened and we're kind of done, we've closed the case. So then I watched this comedian on Netflix, Leanne Morgan, I'm Every Woman. I don't really know who she was. It was cute, it was funny. I love that she wasn't like super dirty and that she just kind of told stories about her husband and her kids and stuff like that. I thought she was hilarious. I sat out here and I just like laughed my butt off one night watching it. Then I watched School Spirits. Mel, my book club partner, she was watching it. My husband and I both wanted to watch it. So School Spirits, I don't know what it's on, Peacock or I don't know, CW or one of those channels, but it's about a girl that is murdered in high school, and that she can't leave the high school, and she's part of this afterlife support group, and so she's trying to find out who killed her, and there's all these other dead people that are spirits in the school as well. I loved the show. I binge watched it until the very last episode. I thought the last episode was horrible. I thought it was very confusing what happened. In fact, when I talked to Mel about it, she was like, I don't even remember that. Like, I was telling her, I was like, well, what do you make of this? Like, I'm so confused by what happened at the end. And it kind of just came out of nowhere. And it just was like, okay, so we watched 8 episodes for it just to end on this. When I was in the hospital and Single Drunk Female was over, it started Cruel Summer. I think it's on Hulu. And I'd heard of this show, but I'd never watched it. And so I started watching the first 10 minutes, and I was like, oh, this is great. Well, when I got done with School Spirits, I wanted to watch something that was similar to that. So I was like, I'm going to go back and watch this Cruel Summer, which is about a girl that's kidnapped and then another girl that gets kind of implicated in the kidnapping as well. I don't want to tell you much more than that. It is so well done, and it's actually by the same people that did School Spirits, which is crazy, but it's 10 times better. It's very, very dark. I will say that, trigger warning, there's like a lot of, you know, stuff in it, and it's really dark, but it's really, really well done, and I really enjoyed it. And it's 1 season. Apparently it got renewed for a 2nd season, and they are going to, but it's going to be like a completely different storyline. It's not going to be the same people or anything. Okay, then I watched Mind Over Murder. Somebody recommended this to me on Twitter, and I tried to look and find out who it was, and I couldn't find it. So Mind Over Murder, I believe, was about the elderly woman that was, the whole thing was very weird. Okay, it was about, I think it was on HBO Max. It was about this elderly woman that was raped and murdered like in the 70s by 6 people supposedly, but then they get exonerated, and then, but like one of them remembers being there still. The whole thing, it's like 6 episodes. The whole thing is told around this play that they're doing in the town, which, so they're doing this play about the murder and what happened. I just felt like the whole play part of it was so unnecessary and really distracted from the overall story that was going on, that I was like, why are we even talking about it? It was dumb. The play part was dumb. At the very end, it kind of made sense because a lot of the people that were being portrayed in the play went to the play, and then they kind of like talked about it. And some of the victims' family members, well, the grandmother, she was a grandmother, her like grandkids went to the play, and they were able to find some like solace in what had happened through seeing the play. So I understand like why they included it in there, but it was like distracting from the documentary. So I watched that. It was okay. It wasn't bad. And then I watched the Cheshire Murders. I'm like, what's the Cheshire Murders? I watched all of these, you guys. Like, literally, I would just, like, binge watch these. The Cheshire Murders was about this mother and her 2 daughters that were, I think it was in Connecticut, that were killed by these 2 guys, and then they were raped. One of them was raped. I think the mother and one of the daughters was raped, and then the house, the dad got away, and then the house was burnt down. And, that was an interesting documentary. It was just like a one and done. It was like an hour and a half long, so I watched that. And then I watched, then I got on Rotten Apples, and I like looked up like the best true crime shows, like 1 through 50. And I think like Making of a Murderer was on there. It was like, you know, all the mainstream ones. But there was one that was on there that I'd never heard of before, and it was called No One Saw a Thing. And I actually had to go on Amazon Prime or something like that, and I had to like purchase this package where I can watch true crime on there. It was $2.99 a month, so I have to cancel it. Don't let me forget. But it was like $2.99 a month, so I could watch this stupid documentary that was 6 parts, and it was so good, you guys. Okay, it's about this small town in Missouri, and it was about this guy that was basically like the town bully. And he was like, came into town, I think it was like in the 50s, maybe like the 60s or the 70s, and he came into town, and while he and his wife were sitting in his pickup truck, like all these people started firing and killing him. Like they shot him in this pickup truck. But like to this day, like no one has ever come forward and said like who, like 60 people were watching. And no one has ever come forward and said who did it, who they saw, and because they're all terrified, right? But then what happened was that it was kind of this interesting story because it was talking about like they had like lynched this guy like in like the 40s, and they talked about like generational secret keeping and how it really ruins towns. And then what had happened was that all of these, like, I mean, this town was like 400 people, and all of these horrific events had occurred afterwards. Like, this kid went missing, and then he was like horribly killed, and then another woman, like, she was pregnant and like she was killed, and somebody cut like her baby. I mean, it was horrible, you guys. And all these things happened in this town of 400 people, and they were talking about that it was kind of like the mentality of secret keeping in this town that had always been there. And so until it stopped, these bad things were going to continue to happen. It was really interesting from a sociological point of view. And then I watched another one on the list, was The Lady and the Dale, which this was, I don't know why, like, this had never been mentioned to me before, but it was so interesting. So it was about this woman that came up with this concept of this car, like in the late 70s, to save money, like for gas. And it was 3 wheels instead of 4, and it was called the Dale. But then it came out that she was trans, and nobody knew that she was trans, and she had been like a convict before that had like done all this, like written bad checks and stole all this stuff. And you guys, this documentary was crazy town. It's like 3 parts, and it's called The Lady and the Dale, and I think it's on HBO Max. Really, really interesting. I mean, it was like nothing I have ever seen before. It kind of reminded me a little bit of that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio called Catch Me If You Can. It kind of reminded me of that for some reason, because of just like the con artistry that was going on. It was unbelievable. And then I watched Dopesick, which was really, really hard for me to watch. And I'm going to do a video on this channel, and I want to talk about this because I think it's important. I've been trying to figure out what channel I want to talk about it on, but I had talked in my last video on my main channel about doctors and nurses not knowing the language of recovery and not knowing how to talk to people, and like one of my biggest fears being hooked on pain medication. And when I was released from the hospital, they released me on pain medication, and every doctor and every nurse told me, oh, it's not habit forming, you know, don't worry about it, even though it says in the bottle that it's habit forming. You're not going to have any withdrawal symptoms, which was my biggest fear. And they had me on, you know, pretty high doses of pain medication because I was in a lot of pain, and that was my biggest fear. And at the height of my fear of when I was going through withdrawals, I was watching Dopesick. Not the time to watch this show, but I will say, which we read this book for a true crime book club. We read the book Dopesick, which is totally different than the book. It is so fantastically done. It is one of the best shows I have ever seen talking about addiction, and it is just, it's absolutely devastating. And yeah, Purdue Pharma and all that. And it's true, I mean, it's a true story. So, like, I mean, I think some of the characters are fictionalized in there. But if you haven't seen Dopesick, and I can't believe it's taken me so long to watch it. So many people have recommended it to me. But I would highly, highly recommend that. And then I watched The Ultimate Girls Trip Thailand, which I loved. And then I watched this documentary, and this was kind of the end of me watching true crime documentaries, because a side effect of my new epilepsy medicine that I'm on, Keppra, is like moodiness and kind of like being sad, like when you first start taking it. And so I was watching all these true crime documentaries, and they were kind of getting me down. And so I watched this one that was also recommended on Rotten Apples, and it was called I Love You Now Die, about the girlfriend that texts the boyfriend about like, and she gets convicted of it, about assisting, like she wants, like is encouraging him to take his life, which he does. And it was so depressing, and it was so dark. I just was like, after that, I was like, enough is enough. And so when we were in Florida, the 2 days that it rained there, they had on Bravo Below Deck Marathon. And so I was like, I'm going to start watching Below Deck. And the one that they had on there was Mediterranean. So I was like, okay, my plan is I'm going to watch all of Mediterranean, all the seasons, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch the original one with Captain Lee. And I'm going to watch all of those, and I'm going to go from there, because every one of my friends, Caroline, my dad, my stepmom is like obsessed. I was talking to her the other day about it, and she's like, I feel like they're my family and blah, 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 whatever. She's like, I was so sad when Hannah got fired. And I go, I'm on season 2. You just ruined it for me. Thanks. Hannah doesn't get fired till like season 5. So anyway, maybe 6. I don't even know. But anyway, she got married and she has a baby now, so she's real happy. It doesn't matter. But anyway, so I have now watched seasons 1 through 4 of BeLowJack Mediterranean. I binge watched them. There's like 18 episodes a season. And I'm halfway through season 5 right now. So, but I took a break because Tanya Jean told me, my best friend Tanya Jean, that there is a show called Love and Death on HBO Max, which is basically Candy, but they redid it. And then she also told me to watch Saint X, which was one of my books for Peter's book club. But I had such a hard time getting through that book, and I have to tell you, I started watching the TV show, and I'm not really sure it's for me. Like, so many people have told me to watch Daisy Jones and the Six, and I just finished the book when we were in Florida, and the book was okay, but I started watching the show. I watched one episode, and I was like, meh. But like, Tanya and my cousin Caroline, everybody's like, oh my god, I love Daisy Jones and Mel. Everybody's like, I love Daisy Jones and the Six, it's so fantastic, I can't believe I can't get into it. So I'm gonna try that too. Saint X, I'll try. But Tanya was like, Queen Charlotte, you have to watch. And I love Bridgerton. So the last 2 days, I watched 3 episodes the first day, 3 episodes last night of Queen Charlotte. Sat here and bawled my eyes out in the last episode. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful show. Like, beautiful. If you haven't seen it, and you haven't, well, first of all, if you haven't watched Bridgerton, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Every person I talk to, my cousin, she's like, I don't like all that dresses. And all that. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, the show is so fantastic. It's written by that Shonda, what is her name, Rhimes. I love her so much. She's such a fantastic writer, and like that Shonda Land, all of her stories, all of her shows that she does. I mean, it is so incredible. And Queen Charlotte is a lot about racism. And it's approached in such a beautiful way. And it's a lot about like loving who you love. And it's a lot about mental health issues and compassion and kindness towards people with mental health issues. And it's just so well done. It's just so fantastically done. And the music is beautiful in it too. And of course the gowns and all of that. I love that. But those are all the shows that I've watched while I've been gone. So if you have any recommendations for me, please let me know. Put it in the comment section below. I would love to hear them. And I've missed you guys, and I'm gonna try to be back filming on a regular basis over here. So anyway, I love you, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.